I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now. Because what I'm about to tell you in the next 60 seconds is something I've spent over 2 decades trying to figure out, and the answer was sitting in front of my patients the entire time, hiding in plain sight inside something they do every single day without thinking. I've treated hundreds of people with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and unstable blood sugar, and I can tell you with complete certainty that the number one mistake they were making had nothing to do with sugar, nothing to do with carbohydrates, and nothing to do with medication. It had everything to do with water. Not whether they were drinking it, but how and when they were drinking it. And the moment we corrected that one habit, glucose readings started shifting in ways that genuinely surprised even me. Let me tell you something, I've never said this directly in a video before. There is a right way and a deeply wrong way to hydrate your body if you have blood sugar issues. And most people, including many of my own patients before I started teaching this, are doing it wrong every single morning before they've even had breakfast. So stay with me, because this is not a video about drinking more water. This is a video about drinking water strategically, and there is a significant difference between the two. I've been practicing internal medicine with a focus on metabolic health for over 22 years. I've sat across from thousands of patients in that exam room, people who came in frustrated, confused, and frankly defeated. They'd tell me the same thing over and over again, almost word for word. "Doctor, I'm doing everything right. I cut out sugar. I'm watching what I eat. I'm even exercising. But my numbers just won't come down." And every time I heard that, I'd ask a few simple questions. What time do you wake up? What do you eat in the morning? And then, what do you drink, and when do you drink it throughout the day? The answers to those last questions almost always revealed the same pattern. Most people with blood sugar problems are chronically, quietly dehydrated. Not the dramatic kind of dehydration where you're dizzy and your mouth is bone dry, but a low-grade, persistent state of mild dehydration that most people don't even recognize because they've been living in it for so long that it feels normal. And that subtle state of dehydration, I've come to believe after years of clinical observation and reviewing the research in endocrinology and metabolic medicine, is one of the most underappreciated factors in poor glucose regulation. Here's what happens inside the body when you're even mildly dehydrated, and I want you to really understand this because it changes everything. When your body doesn't have enough fluid circulating through it, your blood becomes more viscous, thicker, more concentrated. When blood becomes thicker, it doesn't move as efficiently. The kidneys, which are responsible for filtering excess glucose out of the bloodstream through a process of renal reabsorption and excretion, cannot do their job properly when blood flow is sluggish. Studies published in journals focused on metabolic health have documented a clear association between hydration status and blood glucose concentration, specifically showing that as hydration decreases, fasting glucose levels tend to rise, even in otherwise healthy individuals. In people with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, that effect is amplified significantly. There's also the matter of a hormone called vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormone or ADH. When the body detects that you're dehydrated, it releases vasopressin to help conserve water. The problem is that elevated vasopressin has been linked in research to higher fasting blood glucose and increased insulin resistance. It's a connection that most patients have never heard of, because it's the kind of nuance that gets lost in a 10-minute doctor's appointment focused on medication adjustments. But it's real. It's documented, and it means that something as simple as your hydration status is actively influencing your insulin sensitivity from the hormonal level. Let me be very clear about something before I go further. I am not telling you that water is a cure for diabetes. I am not suggesting you stop taking your medications or that hydration alone will fix everything. What I am telling you, what the science and my own clinical experience both point toward, is that proper strategic hydration is a foundational piece of metabolic health that most people ignore, and ignoring it makes everything else you're doing harder. And if you're someone who's serious about understanding this more deeply, not just today's video, but the full picture of how to support your blood sugar through lifestyle and evidence-based approaches, I've left a resource in the first link in the description below. It walks through this step by step in a way that's practical and grounded in medical knowledge. Many people have told me it filled in gaps they'd been carrying for years. I encourage you to check it out after this video. Now, let me get into the actual method, because this is where things get specific, and specific is what changes outcomes. The single most important shift I teach my patients when it comes to hydration and blood sugar is not about volume. It's about timing and distribution. Most people hydrate reactively. They drink when they're thirsty, they drink large amounts at once when they remember, or they drink heavily in the evening because they realize they forgot to drink during the day. This pattern is biologically inefficient and, in people with blood sugar concerns, potentially counterproductive. Let me explain what strategic hydration looks like in practice, because this is the heart of everything I've been building toward in this video. The first and perhaps most important thing I tell every patient with blood sugar issues is this: drink water before you do anything else in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before you check your phone. 12 to 16 ounces of water within the first 15 to 20 minutes of waking up. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. Overnight, your body has been fasting for 7 to 9 hours. You've been breathing, sweating slightly, and performing cellular repair processes, all of which require fluid and deplete your body's hydration reserves. You wake up in a mild state of dehydration every single morning, and if you immediately reach for caffeine, coffee, or tea before rehydrating, you're compounding that dehydration because caffeine has a mild diuretic effect. Your blood is already thicker than it should be, your vasopressin is already slightly elevated from the overnight fast, and your glucose from the dawn phenomenon, that natural hormonal rise in blood sugar that occurs in the early morning hours due to cortisol and glucagon, is already working against you. Drinking water? First thing interrupts this chain before it has a chance to build momentum. It begins thinning your blood, it supports kidney function from the moment you start your day, and it creates a more favorable internal environment for insulin to do its job when you eventually eat. The second element of what I call strategic hydration is consistency throughout the day. Not large amounts at random intervals, but small, steady amounts at regular intervals. 6 to 8 ounces every 60 to 90 minutes is a rhythm I've seen work consistently across my patient population. This keeps the blood at a healthier viscosity, it keeps the kidneys filtering steadily, and it prevents the body from ever entering that mild but impactful state of dehydration that triggers vasopressin elevation. The goal is to make hydration proactive rather than reactive. Don't wait until you feel thirsty, because in many people, especially older adults and those with metabolic conditions, the thirst mechanism is blunted. By the time you feel thirsty, you're already behind. The third element is the one that surprises my patients the most, and it's the one that the research around meal timing and metabolic response supports most directly. Drinking water 20 to 30 minutes before your meals. This is not a small thing. Studies looking at pre-meal hydration and postprandial, meaning after meal, glucose response have found that consuming approximately 16 ounces of water, roughly 20 to 30 minutes before eating, can help moderate the glucose spike that follows a meal. There are several mechanisms at play here. First, water before a meal can reduce the speed at which you eat, which naturally slows the rate at which glucose enters the bloodstream. Second, it helps fill the stomach slightly, which can reduce the total caloric intake of the meal, an important factor for anyone managing weight alongside blood sugar. Third, and perhaps most importantly from a metabolic standpoint, it ensures that your kidneys and bloodstream are well primed to handle the glucose that's about to arrive. Think of it like priming a pump. The system works better when it's already running. I had a patient, a 57-year-old retired teacher named Margaret, who came to me after 3 years of struggling with her A1C. She was diligent. She took her medication faithfully. She had overhauled her diet. She walked every morning, and yet her A1C remained stubbornly above 7. When I started asking about her hydration habits, I discovered she was drinking maybe 2 to 3 glasses of water per day, often in the evening and almost never before meals. She woke up and went straight to coffee. She rarely drank anything in the morning beyond that single cup. I asked her to make one change for 60 days. Follow the hydration protocol I'm describing to you now. 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning. 6 to 8 ounces every hour and a half during the day. 16 ounces before each meal, 30 minutes ahead. She came back 2 months later, and her fasting glucose had dropped by an average of 18 points. Her A1C at her next quarterly check came in at 6.8. The first time it had been below 7 in 3 years. She hadn't changed her medication. She hadn't changed her diet. The only variable was water. I want to be careful here not to overstate what happened with Margaret, because individual results vary enormously, and her case doesn't represent a clinical trial. But it represents a pattern I've seen repeat itself across dozens of patients over the years, enough that I take it seriously and teach it consistently. Now, I also want to address the fourth element of this protocol, because it's often overlooked and can actually work against you if you get it wrong. Many people assume that more water is always better, especially around meals. But drinking large amounts of water immediately after eating, particularly cold water in significant quantities right after a meal, may actually interfere with digestion by temporarily diluting digestive enzymes and affecting the rate of gastric emptying. This is an area where the science is still evolving, and the effects are likely modest in most people, but for individuals with sensitive digestive systems, or those already managing metabolic conditions, it may matter. My recommendation: after a meal, wait at least 30 to 45 minutes before drinking significant amounts of water again. Small sips are fine, but flooding your digestive system immediately after eating is not the goal of this protocol. So let me summarize what strategic hydration looks like in a single clear picture. Start your day with 16 ounces of water before anything else. Maintain consistent, small amounts, 6 to 8 ounces, throughout the day at regular intervals rather than waiting until you're thirsty. Drink 16 ounces approximately 20 to 30 minutes before each of your main meals. And give your body space after meals before returning to significant fluid intake. This is not a complicated protocol. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't require a prescription or a supplement or a special device. It requires awareness and consistency. 2 things that are entirely within your control. I want to take a moment to speak directly to those of you who might be sitting here feeling a little frustrated. Maybe you've been managing blood sugar issues for years. Maybe you've heard of 1,000 different things to try and you're skeptical that something as simple as when you drink water could matter. I understand that skepticism. I've sat across from patients who felt the same way. But here's what I've come to understand after decades in medicine. The body is a system, and systems depend on fundamentals. Hydration is a fundamental. When you get the fundamentals right, everything else you're doing, your diet, your exercise, your medication, has a better chance of working the way it's supposed to. Strategic hydration doesn't replace any of those things. It supports all of them. The research in endocrinology and metabolic medicine has been building for years around the connection between hydration status and glucose regulation. Papers examining vasopressin and glucose metabolism, studies on pre-meal water intake and postprandial glycemia, and population-level research linking daily water consumption to lower incidence of type 2 diabetes all point in the same direction. How you hydrate matters metabolically. And yet, this is rarely the first thing a patient hears in an appointment focused on blood sugar management. The appointments are short. The conversation tends to center on medication, diet, and exercise. Hydration falls through the cracks, not because it isn't important, but because there's only so much time, and the big interventions tend to dominate the discussion. This is exactly why I started making these videos. Because there are things I know, things that come from years of clinical observation, from reading the research carefully, from watching patients improve in ways that surprised even me, that I want to share more broadly. Things that can genuinely help, that are low risk, low cost, and grounded in real science. If you want to go deeper on this, if you want a more complete, practical guide to what truly impacts blood sugar day to day, including what I walk my own patients through when we're looking at natural strategies to complement their medical care, the first link in the description takes you to a resource I've put together specifically for that purpose. It's a detailed, step-by-step breakdown that goes well beyond today's video. I've been told by many people who've gone through it that it changed the way they understood their own health, and that's the kind of feedback that keeps me making content like this. What I want you to take away from this video is not just a technique, but a way of thinking. Controlling blood sugar is not only about restriction. It's not just about eliminating foods or managing macros. It's about rhythm. It's about understanding that the body operates on timing, on circadian patterns, on hormonal cycles, on the relationship between when you eat and when you drink and how you move. Strategic hydration is one piece of that rhythm, a simple piece, a free piece, but a real one. And so to answer the question that brought you to this video, the number one way to drink water for better blood sugar control is not about drinking more. It is about drinking smarter. It is about starting your day hydrated before your body has to fight its way out of an overnight deficit. It is about keeping your blood fluid and your kidneys filtering efficiently throughout the day through consistent, steady intake. It is about giving your body the best possible internal environment before meals, so that the glucose from your food is met by a system that is prepared to handle it. It is about pre-meal hydration, not as a trick, but as a metabolic signal, a way of priming every system involved in insulin response and glucose clearance before the demand arrives. That is the answer: strategic hydration timing. Supported by clinical observation, supported by the emerging research in metabolic medicine and endocrinology, and supported by patients I've watched improve in ways that changed their lives. Blood sugar management is a long game. It is built not on dramatic interventions, but on small, consistent habits repeated every day. Habits that quietly accumulate into long-term health outcomes. The way you drink water is one of those habits. It may not feel dramatic. It may not feel like medicine, but it is the kind of foundational practice that makes everything else you're doing more effective. I hope this gave you something genuinely useful. Not just information, but a shift in perspective. That's what I'm always aiming for with these videos. Not to overwhelm you, but to hand you something clear, something practical, and something backed by real medical knowledge. If this video helped you, I want to ask you directly. Please subscribe to this channel, because this is what we do here. We take complex medical topics, blood sugar, diabetes, metabolic health, the kinds of things that are confusing in a 10-minute appointment, and we break them down clearly, calmly, and honestly. Every video I make is built around one goal: giving you the kind of information that helps you take better care of yourself, on your own terms, with real understanding. When you subscribe, you make sure you don't miss what's coming next, because we are just getting started, and the conversations ahead are ones I genuinely believe can change how you see your health. Hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment telling me what topic you want me to cover next, and I'll see you in the next video.